let's just go in and deal with this Rod Rosenstein first before we get to more of the Kavanaugh stuff. So the Times came out with a story on Friday. I guess it was happening mid-afternoon, that Rod Rosenstein suggested that he secretly, this is the first lines of this, that he secretly record President Trump in the White House to expose the chaos consuming the administration. And he discussed recruiting cabinet members to invoke the 25th Amendment to remove Trump from office for being unfit. Now, the problem with this story, and it was amazing to me, the people who did not read this story carefully enough and actually thought that the sources they were getting for this Times piece was from the DOJ or the FBI. But if you read the story carefully, you'll see that's not where they got their sources. And this is about 4 paragraphs down. And this was in the days after the firing of Comey. And the president divulging classified intelligence to the Russians in the Oval Office. Remember that one?
Not
Rosenstein,
until you mentioned it, actually.
Right. Rosenstein was 2 weeks into his job, and Rosenstein was apparently upset when Trump had cited his memo as the reason why Comey was fired. Mr. Rosenstein made these remarks about secretly recording Mr. Trump. Now, remember what they said, right? They characterized why Rod Rosenstein wanted, not only that he wanted to record President Trump, but as to why, to expose the chaos consuming the administration. He made the remarks about secretly recording Mr. Trump and about the 25th Amendment in meetings and conversations with other Justice Department and FBI officials. And then here's where you got to read carefully. Several people described the episodes in interviews over the past several months, insisting on anonymity to discuss the internal deliberations. Okay, so it sounds like they heard from people who were actually involved in those discussions. But the people were briefed either on the events themselves or on memos written by the FBI officials, including Andrew McCabe, that documented Mr. Rosenstein's actions or comments. So in other words, these people spoke to people who were there, and then those people spoke to the Times. Or they spoke to people who were not there, who simply read Andrew McCabe's memo. You see the problem here, right? Is somewhere along the lines, having a first person's perspective on what was said and how it was said was absent from this story. And whoever the Times trusted to relate to them this information that existed clearly twisted it in a way that they wanted to. Because it comes out hours later, the Washington Post has spoken to someone who was actually there with Rod Rosenstein, and he actually turned to Andrew McCabe, who was there, and said, "So what, Andy? We're gonna wire the president?"
Remember when Hillary and the whole bomb or drone Julian Assange thing happened? It was a similar sort of thing.
Yeah, the words are there, but without the context of what they are actually meaning, you could make this story sound like he was trying to wire the president, when the reality is he's looking at someone saying, "Calm down, dude. What are you going to do? Wire the president?" Not, "What are you going to do? Wire the president?" But this now, of course,
Whatever way you shake it, unfair.
well, this ends up being the premise under which why right now Rosenstein is headed to the White House to either negotiate or to basically say to the president, "You're going to have to fire me, sir. I'm not quitting.
Thank you, New York Times. #resist.
Exactly. They were super psyched to get this story. And there were other people out there who were very quick to sort of say, like, there were FBI, DOJ sources. No, there weren't. There were people who knew FBI or DOJ sources and then were relating that information like telephone, like a game of telephone later. So read carefully, folks. And look, there's some people who argue that you don't need to fire Mueller if you're Trump. You can, because of his reporting requirements to the acting AG could very well slow down Mueller's investigation by just larding requirements onto Mueller. I would imagine that Mueller's already contemplated this, and that by the time if you do get Democrats coming into the House, in a couple of months, less effective. So they may end up firing Mueller. We just don't know at this point. We just, and I would be surprised if part of this wasn't driven by the fact that they don't want people to pay attention to Kavanaugh.